clicking live.
Live, he's going live, he's going live. I bet we're live. Thing is, we're already live before we're live, aren't we? Can you hear me now? Hello. Hey, Mark. Hey, Dave. Hey, Michael. Hanita. Devon. Mr. Steve Took. Sergio. I've always liked that name, Sergio. It's very cool. I feel like if I had more sons, Sergio would be one of those names. Blue Wave Dave. Tom. CJ. Eric with a K. Anita again. And Lauren, how are you? And Michael. It's all rather wonderful. Andrew, I'm scrolling back. Jacob. Who else is there? Toby. Hello, Toby. Hope you're all doing absolutely marvellous well. Mark Peacock, as well as Mark Becker. And I think that's everybody who said hello. Gary Hood. Hello, Gary. Hello, Leslie. Hello, Lockdown Band 1. How are you all today? Yes, it's all rather exciting. Delvin, on the phone, so sorry not being able to chat. That's okay. And Andy says, or Country Tea is okay to start. Country Tea is in the house. Okay, good. Tim Tin says, hello, everybody. Andrew says, hi, Christian. Hello, Christian. So we got another fun-packed event here. CJ is up, I see. Jeff Hollowell is up. Jörg, Mary, Mark Peacock, Anita, Tony, Andy, Emiliano, and Demetrius. A whole bunch of wonderful guys and girls. So quite excited. How have you been? We were at AES. It's been a real, wow, what's the word? Whirlwind over the last few weeks, because we were in. We're backwards and forwards to Europe, and we're back for a few days, and then we went to China, and then we came back for 2 days, and then we went to, for Music China, and then we went to AES. We're only in New York a couple of days. I will say on the fun aspect is we did go to see Hadestown. For anybody out there that wants to go and see a musical, Hadestown was a lot of fun. I was quite tired, so I'm like sitting there like, but it, so you have to forgive me, but it was a lot of fun. It was really, really good. So I highly recommend that. I believe it won all the Tonys this last year. So yeah, a lot of fun. Very blessed. And let's get ready to get stuck in. Did anybody else go to AES, by the way? Were you at AES? I know I met a few people there. Let's see. Michael, Mark, Eric, Sergio. Seems like you're getting recognised more these days. Yeah, in some ways. I mean, when you go to those shows and you go to AES and NAMM and stuff, it's all music people, so it's not surprising they recognise you. It's all okay, We're blessed to be able to do that. So anyway, absolutely wonderful. All right, so let's start listening to some music. First up is CJ with the Workday releases Side by Side. And I'm very excited to hear it. Okay, put on the headphones. I'm going to do a little bit of warming up. Oh, what are we doing at the moment? We're mixing Rick Springfield's, sorry, I just bashed the mic. We're mixing Rick Springfield's live album. We went to the filming of it, so that's quite fun. So that's what's going on at the moment. Okay, CJ.
At the sight of your eyes, I'm feeling at peace. At the sound of your voice, I'm falling in deep. When you tell me you love me, there's no sweeter song. Say it again, darling, and I'll sing along. I am so sorry it took me this long to come home to you, my one true love. Forever I'm yours now, forever you're mine. Let's spend forever side by side, forever together. starting tonight. The world, it will change, and so will we too. But the best will remain, and that's me next to you. So whatever the weather, wind, rain, or sunshine, we'll face it together for the rest of our lives. I am so sorry it took me this long to come home to you, my one true love. Forever I'm yours now, forever you're mine. Let's spend forever side by side, forever together, starting tonight. When the worst is at hand, when good luck starts to land, I will look to you and smile, and you'll know when I do, all that I need is you here next to me. It's why I'm so sorry it took me this long to come home to you, my one true love. Forever I'm yours now, forever you're mine. Let's spend forever side by side, forever together, starting tonight.
It's pretty fantastic, CJ. It's interesting because, of course, as soon as it started, I was just like, well, it's not what I expected. It's very saturated and fat and glued together, which I like. Like, if we go back to the top for 1 second, have a quick listen.
At the sight of your eyes, I'm feeling it peak.
Going to move on a little further in the song.
To come home to you, my one true love. Forever I'm yours now.
Go a little bit later on the song.
That hand, when good luck starts to land.
So, I feel like I really like it. I like the saturation on everything. I like how everything's kind of got a lot of girth to it. The kick is massive. It's like a big Bonham kick. The guitars are really super crunchy and panned left and right, and everything's bass has got like tons of personality. Vocals have loads of like grit to them. I like the call and response overlay idea at the end there. All really, really good. The only thing for me overall is like I could just say that's a great mix and say leave it as that. But for me, it's lacking 3 dimensions. The only thing that you've applied any kind of 3-dimensional, you know, for want of a better word, it's coming out of a pair of speakers or a pair of headphones. So obviously 3 dimensions doesn't really exist. But the idea of front to back, the only thing that has front to back is the snare. The snare has some room on it. Now there might be other room tones on stuff. Don't get me wrong. But they're not evident. They're not really evident. I don't mind. So you've either, I think for me, I think what you've done on the snare, like giving it its place. There's other things need that as well, because everything's competing to be up front at the same time. You could dry up the snare and turn it up, but I think if you do that, it's not going to give it what I'm feeling. It needs more front to back. Everything at the moment feels like it's pushing forward. Now, obviously, with the amount of saturation and stuff on there, which gives it a great sound, it just means that there's a big sort of blob of glued stuff together, and then the snare sitting with some room around it. It's an interesting one because I really like the mix, but I want to hear more depth. So I think you've got to probably skinny down a few things, like take out a little bit of low end out of everything, just a little tiny bit. Just create, and when I mean a little bit, I mean just like sharpen those, ever so slightly sharpen those high passes. Put a little bit more room. The room might sound good in solo on an instrument, but once it's in the track, it disappears. So maybe just push up your, your reverbs a little bit, push up your delays just a little bit, just a tiny bit, and just shave off some low end. Just a little bit of everything, and then come back and listen to it. And I think that will keep the same feel. You'll still have this saturated, glued together kind of like, which I'm really impressed with and I love, but just a bit more space around everything. Just want a little bit more space, a little bit more ambience. And in general, the low lows are like really gluing everything together, particularly the kick, which is massive, but I don't actually mind it being that massive if it had some ambience around it. Being careful, of course, to use like the Abbey Road trick, EQ off the low lows out of these reverbs, or else that's just going to contribute to what's already kind of mushy at the moment. But that's what I would do. I would get in there, tighten everything up a little bit with the low end, and put a little bit more verbs and delays, bring them up, and try and create some more front to back space. Otherwise, absolutely fantastic. I mean, overall sound I love, and very adventurous and very different to my version, which always makes me happy. I mean, I love it when you guys and girls go out there and just like push the boundaries and try something very, very different. All right, next up is Jeff Hollowell. I didn't read, sorry, my fault, I didn't read CJ's thing. So I apologise, CJ. CJ said, here's my attempt on this beautiful song with some minor production add-ons, updated link. Okay, great. So I didn't miss much anyway. So let's go and read Jeff's. Thank you, CJ. Jeff is next. Jeff says, tried some things out on this one just because I could. I tried the I.O. plugin in Logic to use my Warm 76 and Alesis MIDI Verb 3. Love that on a couple of the tracks. Can't say I will do it again, but it was fun learning how to incorporate hardware into the mix process. Update, thanks for the feedback. Went back to it and made some adjustments. I feel better about it now. Marvellous. Here we go. Here's Jeff's mix of Parallels.
I cover my mouth with a curse and a cross to paralyze. Don't you trust me? I'm listening. Don't you trust me? Fill up my mind the lights that paralyze. Yeah. Are you wondering if I'm falling out? Are you wondering? Time changes time into a spineless curve. Turn on the dime, away from the worst reserve. Lost in my mind is a shallow reserve, but you got love enough. Changes time into a spineless curve. Turn on the dime, away from the worst reserve. Lost in my mind is a shallow reserve, but you got love. Time changes time into a spineless curve. Turn on the dime, away from the worst reserve. Lost in my mind is a shallow reserve, but you got love. You got love. Isn't you got
Wow, it's pretty amazing. Hey, Eric, would you go and get me the really expensive Focals? We're going to get the really expensive headphones here. Okay, I want to have a quick listen to a couple of things.
Changes time into a spineless curve. Turn on the dime, away from the worst reserve. Lost in my mind is a shallow reserve, but you got love. Time changes time into a spineless curve. Turn on the dime, away from the worst reserve. Lost in my mind is a shallow reserve, but you got love. You got love. Isn't you got
So I really enjoy it. Eric, you having a hard time finding them?
No, I found them. They were just put in a tough spot.
They're put in a tough spot, apparently. Buried. We have so many things sitting in boxes in there. Okay, Jeff, I really, really like it. It's a really fantastic mix. It's a really fantastic mix. And to be honest, that could be it. We could be done. We could be like going, wow, it's so fantastic. And like anything, you know, when something gets this good, it's like, how can we learn? So a couple of things. I think it's very crowded in the high mids and the high end. It gets a little in there, like I can hear the shizhajangs, and they don't have to be like completely audible, but it just feels like everything's getting just a little bit squashed into everything else. I think, I'm not sure if it's bussing, of things bussing together and getting compressed and EQ'd, and then other things bust and compressed and EQ'd, all summing up to being bussed and compressed and EQ'd. But it's a little kind of gritty around like 3 to 7K, just a little bit. And this is so subtle. You could put this mix out and you could send this to the artist and they'd be blown away. They'd think it's fantastic. Don't get me wrong, it's really, really good, but how can we just improve it? And to that, I think, you know, if I was opening up this mix, I'd be looking at the bussing and going, well, where's the boosting going on in the high mids? Where's it potentially getting a little? Okay, we got the really expensive ones. We do need an adapter though. I suppose I can just swap it out. Why am I going for the really expensive headphones? Well, I'm going for this because I really want to hear these details here. When I did the video, I put them around the wrong way. And I still don't know which is the right way or the wrong way. Okay. Oh, wow, these are so comfortable. All right, have a listen.
Changes time into a spider's
Yeah, it's super crowded. With these, which are like so detailed, so detailed and so expensive, but really worth it. These are really expensive headphones. It's just all the high mid area is like, and I don't want to listen to those all the time because they're not my usual listening headphones. I'm going to go back to what I know and love every day. But I was hoping with those I could sort of answer some questions, and I feel like, let's pause for a second. Jeff's mix is fantastic. But in the high mid area and the high end in general, everything's a little too, just a little bit too squashed together. We'll see if we can get a little bit more separation. You know, it's just a little bit more detail in there. If things are overdriven in those areas, maybe bring them down a little bit. We did recently do something where we had, not Leap Wing, the, what's the other one called? The other one that we reviewed. It was not Leap Wing, Dying One, it was... No, not Nugent. It was like one other. Sorry, impromptu stuff. This is what you get when it's live. You get us trying to. Anyway, it was this. It's another one of those plugins, you know, we ended up taking it off somebody's mix, and then the high mids suddenly got so much better, and that's really a big deal, you know, to be able to do that. Fantastic. Anyway. I just wanted to say, I think more detail work in that area as well. I'm trying to think what it was. It's really important. If it's not Leap Wing, it's the other one that everybody loves. The other, we've done videos on it. Another one of those multi-band sort of compressory kind of balanced things. See if anybody can. Gullfoss, thank you, Dave. Gullfoss, yes. We actually found that the Gullfoss was sort of muddying up the high mids. And I'm not sure if I would necessarily recommend it on the overall mix bus anymore. So just saying, you know, I felt like if it was used on instruments leading up to that in small doses, it worked. But on the mix bus, it did a little bit of this. So I don't know if, Jeff, you were using the Gullfoss on there. Were you? Because it's like some of the detail has gone, and it's just sort of like everything's as a sort of... With the acoustics doing that thing, the electric, the strings have all sort of like gritted together, or, you know, yeah, gritted together. The grit sort of pushed them all together. Yes, Gullfoss TA. Don't get me wrong, I love the Gullfoss plugin, but, you know, I still have a very high bar on these things about how I want things to sound. Growing up with consoles and stuff, I'm used to hearing things glue and be separate at the same time. Yes, sounds contradictory, but it is possible. Anyway, I do like the Gullfoss, don't get me wrong, but yeah, we had a little kind of phasing high-mid issue going on with this particular mix. All right, but great work, Jeff. It's just get into those details of those high-mids. All right, next up is Jörg with Steve Magora's Crazy, and Jörg said, "Aloha, chaps and chapettes. Okay, here's my third song, a rework of the second for Feedback Friday since I'm in the plap from Steve Magora Crazy. Thanks for the chats on Facebook, Skype, and also a lot of members here in the Academy. Was a very constructive way to sort out taste, feeling, emotions, and prepare it. I love to play stuff on the live sound stage with a lot of air in it, my own sound creation and personal style. So Mr. Magora, hope you feel comfortable with what I've done with this version. If not, I'll spend a big package of beer, send a bigger package of beer and whiskey for you and your boys. They would love that, trust me. Finally, my ears and taste is now in it, so lay back and chill out listening. So Warren, tell me what your first impressions, and all comments are always welcome. Oh, I will. Here we go.
I've been baptized by fire. I've been going insane. I'm a guitar man with whiskey in hand and drugs in my brain. I've crossed borders and seas, played for princes and thieves, but nothing else matters if you ain't with me. I'm going crazy, crazy for a woman like you. Felt this way before, and that didn't turn out well. So now I'm starting anew. I've been lying here all damn night, dreaming up ways to get back to you. What could I do? What could I say? Is there anything left to make you feel the same? I've been baptized by fire. I've been going insane. I'm a guitar man with whiskey in hand and drugs in my brain. I've crossed borders and seas, played for princes and thieves, but nothing else matters if you ain't with me. I'm going crazy, crazy for a woman like you. You, a woman like you. Oh. Someone said to me, man, you gotta be crazy for speaking your mind. But I can't control my brain. You might not feel the same, but I don't mind wasting my time. 'Cause what if you knew, and what if I'd stayed? Is there anything left to make you feel the same? I've been baptized by fire. I've been going insane. I'm a guitar man with whiskey in hand and drugs in my brain. I've crossed borders and seas, played for princes and thieves, but nothing else matters if you ain't with me. No, I'm going crazy,
Great mix, Jörg. Great mix. So you probably noticed I went to listen on the speakers as well, just so I could get some perspective on the Gen X. I've got the 1032Cs up, you know, the other day. That was actually the next day that we put that video up. Stephanie came in and we just flattened them out for the room. I like this mix a lot, but it feels like the bass has a lot too much control over the mix, if you know what I mean. If you have a listen here at the end.
Crazy.
See when that comes in, the whole mix sucks down. So it's interesting. It's hard to tell because I think it's more of a volume thing. I also feel like the bass is probably feels very compressed. It's like getting that happy medium. But mixing stand-up bass is really, really difficult. It's really difficult. It takes a lot of work. Sometimes I run several multi-band compressors, 2 or 3 on it, just to keep control of the low end. But then sometimes after doing all of that, I put an expander on the end to try and get the notes to poke out a little bit as well, believe it or not. It's finding that happy area. But for instance, if I'm going to go and grab, what should we grab? Here's a frequency analyzer.
Crazy.
There's so much low end there consistently where it should be tucked underneath. It should be a little quieter. So I feel like if I was to, for instance, grab an EQ here. So let's go grab, it's a great mix. I just want to see how we can improve it. So if I'm going to, let's for instance wipe off everything below like 100 and have a listen. You'll understand why in a minute.
Crazy.
Okay, so the reason why I did this wiping up everything below, like it says 120 here, but it's quite gentle. So you'll hear the whole mix ducks even though the low end's disappeared. And once more in here.
Going crazy. Woman like you. Lord knows I'm going crazy.
I wonder if another thing we could do is maybe go to like 110, pull some of that out, take this off. That's a little nicer, it's starting to open up. So what I've done is I've gone to 110 and I'm just ducking it. Now obviously that's coming, you know, down to about 60 and stuff. We could see, the bass is probably super low down there at about 60, but let's see what we can pull up. So I'm going to give a little bit of 60 here. Yeah, it's really super close. It's just the bass is dominating the effect of the mix. It's not that, maybe it's a little too loud in places. It's just actually quite well compressed and quite well EQ'd. I mean, that actually is not a bad thing, but it's because it's so prevalent and there all the time, it's sort of making the mix pump a little bit in areas. And, you know, as they say, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, it is tough working on that sort of super powerful low end down there. And, you know, stand-up bass is one of the most difficult things I have to mix. If you go and listen to, like the, you know, the albums I did with Trevor Hall, or the new one with Brendan McMorrill, the last two, or Mikey Pauker, you know, these artists that I've been working with, that they play a lot of stand-up bass, and it's really fantastic. However, we could be really careful when it comes to mixing, you know, that we preserve the low end, but it doesn't blow up. And sometimes that's multiband compression in series, and sometimes that's dynamic. And it's tough also because the kick drum in this instance was tiny. It was like a little jazz kit. So like getting it to sort of all work really well, you know, is always going to be a real pain.
Summer nights in these city lights fade away, yeah. So tell me, I just might take a flight tonight if I could just see your face. Oh, I've been baptized by fire. I've been going insane.
I think the main, it's really close, and I'm glad we're spending time on it. I think the main thing for me is to get that piano to inherit a bit more space and a bit more mid-range, like, because at the moment it feels very much like it's kind of, there's a very compressed and controlled bass, which is great. There's an electric guitar which is fairly dominant. There's the vocal. I can definitely hear sizzle on the top of the cymbals, but a little bit of a disconnect between the cymbals and the rest of the kit, just a little bit. Like when I went to the speakers over there, I heard like the top of the ride and then kick and snare, but I didn't hear that sort of ambience that connects everything together. I think a little 400 in an overhead isn't a bad thing, just a little bit, but pulling out most of it for toms and stuff like that, but just a little 4/6, just a hair of it, just to give body to the cymbals. So you cut it, but you don't cut it too much. And sometimes that can not necessarily be a cut, but it can be a boost. I actually very rarely ever boost cymbals. You know, it's like, so I might add some ambience on the cymbals, but try not to do too much of it. I'll get, that's definitely where I'll do a little bit more cutting rather than boosting. But I think the biggest thing for me is to get the piano to drive a little bit more, you know, and I think once you get the piano driving a little bit more, then you'll be great. Yes, definitely Jörg, but go and listen to Daryl Thorpe's mix. You know, so you get some perspective, you can have a listen to Daryl's. And basically what he did was a lot less. He did a lot less, he just did some light fader moves and not quite as much. It was more like recorded how he wanted it to be. So yeah, a little bit more presence from the piano. Try to get a little bit more thump on that kick. and a little bit more separation on that bass. Like I said, quite often when I've done that multiple compression and stuff and got the bass to be really even, I've ended up going back and putting an expander on it, so at least the initial hits have a little bit of transient. Because sometimes when I've done it, and this is, I've gone in there and got this really even, almost synth-like bass tone, I've suddenly realised that none of the pluck and none of the performance from the right hand is in there, you know. So it's always getting that balance. But I think the piano is going to be your biggest secret, just getting a little bit more drive from the piano and making sure the low end of the piano isn't too muddy with the bass and with the kick. Great work, and thanks for indulging us, like having a good conversation about this. All right, next up is Mary, and Mary says, here is my mix of Chase K's Warm. We just got done doing a third pass on it. Would love to some help with dialing it even further. So far, we've leveled the mix and pan things. I've also made sure this EQ to bass, so I left room for the kick. Nice. The kick was really weak from the raw track, so I beefed it up that too and added a click overtone to give it more depth and punch. Then during this last pass, I side-changed the guitar bus to the vocals to make the guitars duck under the vocals better. So far, I feel this has been the best mix we've done so far, and I'm hoping there are a few minor things left to tweak. Also, instead of just me, Mary mixing, Sam is also mixing right along with me, and we're working together as our startup business, a common time production. How exciting. Well, congratulations. I love hearing that. And remember, you can use these mixes in your portfolio to help you get work. All right. Mary Nance with Chase K Warm.
Wake up in the morning, jump right out of bed. Rain is at our window, fall is here again. Darling, quit your yawning, sleep some other time. It's such a lovely morning to run around outside. I don't wanna wait for summer to come, 'cause I'm warming up with you in my arms. Some might say the cold is no fun, but I'm warming up. Yes, I'm warming up with you in my arms. Ooh, put on that old raincoat, jump right in the mud. But sometimes it gets boring doing what we should. I don't wanna wait for summer to come, 'cause I'm warming up with you in my arms. Some might say the cold is no fun, but I'm warming up. Yes, I'm warming up with you in my
Darn tasty. I want to try something here. I know you were talking about the kick. It feels very natural at the moment, actually. I'm wondering in your room, because there's not a lot of super low lows in the mix in general. So I want to try a couple of things. I wonder, you know, one of the things sometimes in rooms is there's a false sense of low end. So I'm going to give it what I believe to be something normal.
Wake up in the morning, jump right out of bed. Rain is
So it's pretty crazy. I've gone up to about 7 dB at 60 to try and get some of that lows out of that kick. So they're not really evident in the mix. Maybe I'll come down a little bit. The split difference to about 5
wake
dB.
up in the morning, jump right out of bed. Rain is at our window, fall is here again. Darling, quit your yawning, sleep some other time. It's such a lovely morning to run around outside. I don't wanna wait for summer to come, 'cause I'm warming up with you in my arms. Some might say the cold.
Of course, I'm pretty happy with it about there. So what I've done is on the overall mix is I've got 4 dB of 60 hertz to get that kick to thump. Maybe you can go down to 3.5. But so I wonder with the room, I wonder if the room, your room is reproducing a lot of extra low end, so that it feels like, you know, you don't have to give it that little extra thump. So I definitely, that's worth reviewing, because I know sometimes, quite often with the low end in particular, we get a lot of varying different results from people, you know, especially when they first come in and they haven't been interacting that much, but even then, you know, the low end is the biggest thing. So I definitely would be looking at, you know, where you can get that extra thump out of it. You know, it's just that little extra oomph would be really, really good.
Wake up in the morning, jump right out of.
Anita says this is not the correct mix. Her latest one was in her last post on the forum and sounds much better. Eric?
Looking it up.
Say again?
Looking it up.
Eric is looking it up. Dum 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 da. I don't have that. Let's go back. History. So it's not in the Dropbox? It's a different one? Okay, thanks for taking the time to listen. The final bounce. Let's see. Do. Okay, can you directly download it?
Yes. Yeah, I see that.
Okay, that was an Eric mistake.
Yep.
He's admitting it. All right, well, that's good. We're going to come back to it. Well, there you go. We're going to get the final bounce in a minute. All right, moving on, and then we'll re-review it in all fairness, because that's what we do here. Want everybody to put their best foot forward, and it's all about learning together. So great. Mark says, hi there all. Love doing this track. Really wanted to make it smoother and airy and focus on the romantic strings. Used a ton of compression series and parallel. Tried to make an old school approach to make this as natural as possible. Use the following: UAD, Fairchild, LA2As, Pultex, Voice of God by Little Lebs. We love Jonathan Little, he's a great guy. Little Plate, Real Verb, Pro R, Ableton, Convolution, Cooper Time Tube, Fab Filter, Pro Q3, Pro DS, and Pro R. Lots of pros. All right, Mark, I'm very excited to hear it. And here we go.
Time 'cause you got a lot of love.
I'm going to go back and listen a little bit earlier.
Away from the world's prisons, lost in my mind is a shallow reserve, but you got a lot of love. Shallow reserve, but you got a lot. A tide changes tide into a spineless curve, turned on the dime, away from the world's prison, lost in my mind is a shallow. But you got a lot of love. You got a lot of love. But you got a lot of love.
I did there. I cut a little bit about 2K, a nice really warm thing. It's a little crowded in that mid-range area, just a little bit. And then, like AJ was pointing out with the cymbals, it'd be nice to hear just above, like 7 and 10K, a little bit of sizzle here and there. It's almost like I want to maybe go something like this. And this could be a mastering thing altogether. Although these, by mastering engineers' terms, these are quite drastic moves. But look, let's try this.
But you got a lot of
Yeah, I mean, a great mastering engineer could open that up a little bit more, just a little bit on the highs, much more sophisticated than I just did there. What we did was a really super dumb, kind of almost tilty cue, you know, we went, rip. But I think there's a little crowded, about 2, 3, 4, just a little crowded, and then could be a little area over the top, just a little bit. But I think yes, a mastering engineer could do that, but I think maybe it's getting in there and finding out what's competing in those areas, because there's a lot of information in that. You know, it's just, this is subtle. I mean, we're bringing like a dB up and a dB down. In fact, we've gone less than that. We've got like less than a dB boost at about 8K, just to try something on the top there, and about a dB cut at about 2. It's too harsh, because it's too, not harsh sounding, but too generic. Me going in and doing it at a mastering stage, I don't think is the way to go. This is a really, really good mix. So what are we doing? Because it's a really good mix, we're getting in there for small details. I think the only other thing to really think about is like whether we have enough thump on that kit.
Time changes time into a spine.
There's a lot competing down there. When I bring up that 60, the bass is going like crazy.
Time changes time into a spine.
So suppose we could go into about 80, pull some of that down.
Time changes time into a spineless curve. Turned on a dime, away from what was reserved. Lost in my mind is a shallow reserve, but you got lost.
It's really super close. These are very subtle things. And they're too global. You know, when I'm doing something like this, I'm globally doing it. There's times where it feels like it just needs a little bit more. Mark, this is a really fantastic mix. And now that you're getting so good and so close, I'm just thinking about, like, how can we just take it slightly over the edge? And one thing I've been noticing just in general, like, we always talk about low end, and that is amazing. Getting the separation between the bass guitar and the kick, or the bass instruments and the kick, and just having moments that they cross over, of course, but just allowing a little bit of a high pass, just a little bit out of the way of the fundamental of the kick, which really sort of lives depending on the music, but usually about 40 to 60. Most people take about 60. Chris Aldalgi takes 70. He's got Poltex, which is just cranked at 70. Well, not cranked, but they're like 3 or 4 dB up there. And that's like gives him his thump. But he wants his music to be super loud. The lower you go, 40 and 60, it's not going to sound as loud on the radio, you know, because of that low end. But let's just say you take 60 and you push it up on your kick. You're going to have that 40 underneath that comes up with it. But the problem is you also get that crossover area of about 80 to 100 where the bass guitar wants to live. It wants to live in there. Now, of course, the bass guitar can go down to 60 and 40, but should slope down nicely. But then it's fundamental, not on every note, but fundamental girth is usually around about an 80 to 100. Hence why the Waves R-Bass defaults to 80. It sounds great. Low end on toms sit nicely around that area as well. You know, depending on the tom, how small it is. But generally speaking, we love that sort of 80 area down there. All of these things are really good and really inherent. And in digital, we can get very finite and get in there and give these things their own space. So I think just a little bit more low end shaping, just a tiny bit. I want the kick to be a little bit more felt. Now we cheat because we have a DBX 120. 120A, or the disco boombox, which gives you the sub-harmonic on the kick, which is very quiet, but we have it just underneath. You could invest in something like that if you're working in hardware, or you could get in there and use a sine wave generator and just go boo, 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 just slightly under. That might help you. All of us, when I say you, all of us. And so just a little bit more detail on the low end there. It's really good, Mark, but just a little bit more detail in there. And then just take an hour, half an hour, 20 minutes, just go in there and see if you can just solo out the instruments in a high mid area and on the mid-mids, the 2, 3, 4, and just see what's competing with each other. It's nice that they glue together a little bit, but it would also be nice if the acoustic, you know, sizzle was maybe a little bit above that, maybe 7K. You know, maybe it was more, so it was more percussive. I like that on acoustics, that sort of sound of the fingers on the strings. You know, maybe go up a little higher to about 7 and not have a sort of a boost about 3 to 5 area. You know, if you're boosting, just try to sort of like get 7 and above ever so lightly. And then always don't be afraid on electric guitars and stuff like that to use a de-esser on it. So when they just start to get a little brittle in the 3 to 5K area, there's a de-esser in there, just tucking it down a little bit. That will also help keep the separation and stuff like that. But again, let's be super positive. This is a fantastic mix, and these are very subtle things. Great work. All right, next up. But I love being able to talk about it. Do I usually boost 110? I don't usually find that I need to boost 110. I usually end up cutting it out of a kick so there's room for it. If I'm boosting 80 fairly wide, like this, the 100 and 110 gets pulled up gently by it. And when I boost a couple of dB at most on 80. And then I cut that little area out of the kick. Just a little bit, so there's not like this massive overlap, just a little bit. And also you'll find if you are using multiple kick drum mics, the 110 region starts to get a little bit of a build up with all these frequencies, because like 40 and 60 is these big fat blobs of waveforms. 110 is a little narrower, and you can get like this area where it starts to build up and it gets a little ugly about 110. So a little tugging out of that area, just a tiny little pull out of that area can work really, really well. Okay, but Mark, great mix. Anita's up. Hey, Anita. Hello, Anita. Version 3 replaced the original drums with the MT Power Kit. Found them a bit thin, so I added one snare and one kick sample track. I doubled the piano track and panned them, then realized it was stepping on the bass guitar, so I high-passed the piano a little more aggressively and side-changed the bass to the track to duck it. Just enough to have the bass come through. Got rid of the click on the kick and made the snare not so snappy. Performed a lot of volume automation on David's vocal to bring up some words that got lost, also as well as de-essing the two de-esses. I haven't quite caught them all. Thank you, Sheila, Paul and Mark, for the valuable feedback. You guys rock. Okay, excellent. Here we go.
I wandered out again last night into the ocean. Dove deep until I knew no longer up from down. It feels like clarity until my lungs remind me my time is up, time is up. Then you pull me back when I'm out of breath. Swimming deep in black, you pull me back. When I'm sinking down, down into the depths, you pull me back. And without you I know for sure I'd drown, but you pull me back. You pull me back. I wandered out again last night into a river. Allowed the current to decide where I should go. It felt like freedom until I knew I was drifting. All alone, all alone. And I missed you, my home. Then you pull me back when I'm out of breath. Swimming deep in black, you pull me back. When I'm sinking down, down into the depths, you pull me back. And without you I know for sure I'd drown, but you pull me back. You pull me back. No one will ever love me like you do. No one will ever love me like you do. No one will ever love me like you do. No one will ever love me like you do. You pull me back when I'm out of breath, swimming deep in black. You pull me back when I'm sinking down, down into the depths. You pull me back, and without you I know for sure I'd drown, but you pull me back. You pull me back.
Great. I don't think it sounds necessarily distorted. It's definitely right on the verge, Anita. You know, it's like, it's not completely square waved off, but it's definitely a hot print, you know. And I think that when you're dealing with things that are super, super hot, that are traveling in this instance through, you know, multiple mediums, they tend to exaggerate any little issues. I think that's important to remember, is like, if you're, I mean, I'm streaming it a lot more directly here, and it doesn't sound distorted, but it definitely sounds like on the verge, you know, because it's printed loud. And I think now you send that down through YouTube and all this kind of stuff, there's always going to be a little bit of extra, yeah, you know, a little extra hair. Where, you know, if it was maybe like Andy's mix down here, let's have a listen to that quickly, you're probably going to find that so for instance, like that's super, super clean, like really, really clean, and it's, and yeah, it's kind of a catch-22. You know, these printing hot mixes is great you know, and it's not a problem to do. And mastering engineers, all the best ones, don't care if you send them a hot mix. But unfortunately, a little hotter when it comes to sending around the world, you know what I mean, and beaming through YouTube can always give us issues. But let's get back to the point. I mean, it's a great mix, Anita. Really, really cool. I mean, wonderful work. And those of us that have known Anita now for the last couple of years, it's like it's really wonderful how much help she's given to others and what a huge part of the Academy she is.
I wandered out again last night into the ocean. Dove deep until I knew no longer up from down.
I love what you did with the drums. I know you said you put samples against it, but I think it's fantastic. The only thing, and this is the little artist in me, the only thing I would change, and that's how good it is I'd put some delays on the guitar. I don't like my noodly guitar part at all. I would completely replay it. I know we did these songs like sometimes really quickly for videos. It could be massively better, done much better, but
Where I should go. It felt like freedom until I knew I was drifting. All alone, all alone. And I missed you, my home. Then you pull me back when I'm out of breath.
yeah, I like the kick. It's a little bit heavy, but you know, we were talking earlier about not the most recent mix, but Mary's, you know, first mix, about how it didn't have that low end thump that you've got there. So, you know, there's a sort of a happy medium maybe between the two.
Where I should go. It felt like freedom until I knew I was drifting. All alone, all alone.
I mean, I like that. Is it a little prevalent, maybe a little bit hot? Maybe. But I think a good mastering engineer, because it's like defined and focused down there, and you've done a really good job, a good mastering engineer would probably come in, you know, maybe take some 60, pull out a little bit.
Where I should go. It felt like freedom until I knew I was drifting. All alone, all alone. And I missed you, my home.
The other thing they could do is just use like a dynamic EQ and just catch just that when it pushes over a little bit. Tiny bit of multiband maybe, but really on the whole, it's a great mix. Could you bring the kick down a little bit? Maybe. Just bring it down a nats. And I would just make the electric guitar more interesting. I think it's noodly. I played it, so I can be a little harsh on myself. It sounds a little noodly, and I think it needs something to make it more interesting. Little delay on it would be really, really good. Otherwise, great. And I wouldn't be down on the fact that, you know, it's a loud mix and it doesn't translate through YouTube so well. That's okay. That's life. It's a lesson on YouTube's algorithms. You know, we did that whole video on that, you know, and that's just one of those things. All right, next up is Tony Hall. Great work, Anita. And Tony Hall's version of Me in the City. And Tony says, I love this band and their songs. I put the harmonica front and center. A lot of automation was built into the composition, but I added a drop of bass at the bridge to build a little excitement, and it was a lot of fun to mix, and I think I brought the energy out of the track. Exciting to hear. Here we go.
My chance to make this right. It's when I have my chance to show you I'm alive. All the things I said to make you cry, or all the things I said to cover up my lies. You got a heart of stone, and I got a long, 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 long way home. When I have my chance to make this right, it's when I have my chance to show you I'm alive. All the things I said to make you cry are all things I said to cover up my lies. You got a heart of stone, and I got a long, 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 long way home. And when you find the one, you better hold on tight and don't let go. Don't leave this side, you better hold on. Yeah, you better hold on. 'Cause one day, when it's crashing down and you tell yourself that you just need out, you better hold on. Yeah, you better hold on. 'Cause she hates the way that you make her cry, and she hates the way that you always lie, but you hold on. Yeah, she's gonna hold on. And one day, when it's crashing down and you tell yourself that you just need out, you better hold on. Yeah, you better hold on. You have a heart of stone. You have a long, 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 long way home.
Is it clean for you?
It's just 32.
But how much? Because I'm not hearing it like that. So you bring down the send?
I am.
Okay. All right, well, just making sure. I turned it down like a dB and a quarter here, and Eric's going to turn down the send to YouTube if YouTube's being overly sensitive today. We do have, you know, we have the settings saved each time, so they should be the same each time. But yeah. If YouTube is changing its algorithms or blah blah blah, but in general, yes, I hear, you know, you hear the saturation on the vocal. Now it might not be, you know, the specific saturation put on it. It could just be the way the compression works or whatever that's kind of adding that grit. It isn't necessarily bad. I mean, if we listen to like Motown records, I mean, they go into pure overdrive, you know, and then wah, and it's a. I mean, some of it, but it's amazing. It's part of the sound. So I'm not afraid of a little grit and stuff like that. I really, really like this. I would say, Tony, it's definitely a pop mix. The vocal is super out front and like super pop. I mean, I think it's blending that. I mean, this is something that you would expect to be closer to be on the radio with the vocal that much up front, which of course is what all the Mumford & Sons stuff probably is mixed like. You know, they always would use the... you know, they did always use the, you know, they'll always go with the vocal up. Not always, but they usually do a single mix with the vocal up and, you know, all of that good stuff. But I think ultimately, I really like it. I don't mind the vocal being that hot. Let me have a quick listen.
My chance to make this right. It's when I have my chance to show you I'm alive.
It's tough. It's very exciting. Very, very exciting. In general, you know, it's very high mids. There's a lot of like information in that area because you've got the xing-zhang, xing-zhang, xing-zhang. You've got the electric guitar, you've got the acoustic guitar playing that part. So the detail gets a little crunchy in there, and then the vocals sitting quite loud and proud over the top. Even what I'm listening to here, which is not going through the algorithm, I can hear the fight in the high mids. And it's a tough one. I would personally bring down the vocal just a nats. And I like the pop mix when I get what you're going for. I would do a little bit more of that. Let me have a quick listen.
It's when I have my chance to show you I'm alive.
So I'm feeling the bass. I like the bass. It's maybe a little bit of a volume thing. You could probably bring it up half a dB, but I think there could be a little bit more roundness in the low lows and a little bit more low lows on the kick. At the moment, it feels a little stunted in the low end. You know, and I think that would help because it's all detail in the high mids at the moment. So just a little bit more low lows on the kick and just a little bit more low lows on the bass. And I think that would just give me like a nice warm fuzzy feeling. Like if we go for something generic, for instance, and again, all these things that we do here are not the solutions. Don't do this on your master bus. This is just more of an illustration. So if we go to the Puig Tech, for instance, EQ P1A, and just go to like 60.
It's when I have my chance to show you I'm alive.
It's a very hot mix. It's overdriving. It's actually a lot to do. It's overdriving the Pultec quite heavily.
It's when I have my chance to show you I'm alive. All the things I said to make you cry, or all the things I said to cover up my lies. You got a heart of stone, and I got a long, 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 long way.
Interesting how that Puig Tech there like affects the low end in a good way, but also kind of chokes up some of those high mids. So interesting. You know, with the Pultecs that we have, the real ones, they don't have that high mid thing where it sort of like ducks a little bit. I think a lot of the modeling when done on certain things is all dependent on the unit that was modeled. And I feel like that unit that was modeled was a little darker than any of the Pultecs I have, and actually reduces some of the high mids. So that could be a good lesson on a bus somewhere. Anyway, yeah, a little tiny bit more thump on the kick, a little tiny bit more low lows on the bass, just a little tiny bit of both of those. And I think that would really, really make me very, very happy. It's very crowded in the high mids and the vocals a little tiny bit hot for me, just a little bit. And it's very, very mid-rangey. It's got a lot of like, mama na bam bam, you know, like 7-ish, and it could do with a little bit more air on the top. But let's be honest, it's a really, really good mix, and in 90% of the times you would get the gig from that mix. So I think that's very important to remember. We're sort of getting into this world now where we're really talking about like detailed stuff that could really elevate this massively. Okay, great work, Tony. Next up is Andy Kubecki. Hopefully that's how you pronounce it. Hey, Andy. Hey, I'll just want to give you this one shot. Had fun doing it. Now I can listen to some of the other mixes here. Wondrous.
Whoa, 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 whoa. supposed to be. And everybody knows it's all about family. And all the people that surround me, we all really just wanna be free. Oh, everybody knows. Oh, oh. Everybody knows. Hey, 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 hey. 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 Everybody knows that this is how it's supposed to be. And everybody knows it's all about the history. And all the people that came before me, they all really just wanna be free. Oh, everybody knows. Oh, oh. Everybody knows. Hey, 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 hey. 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 Everybody knows it's all about the children. And everybody knows it's all about the vision to make a better world for everyone, so we can come together as one. Oh, everybody knows. Oh, oh. Everybody knows. Hey, 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 hey. 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 Everybody knows. 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 Everybody. 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 Everybody knows. Everybody. Everybody knows. 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 Everybody knows that this is how it's supposed to be. And everybody knows it's all about the family. And all the people that surround me, we all really just wanna be free. Oh, everybody knows. Oh, oh. Everybody knows. 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 Everybody knows.
Amazing. And it's really, really good. I only have one comment to make. Ride the djembe. Just ride it, because there's times when it's too loud. Like bring it down like a dB when things are emptier, and then let it come back up when it gets busier. That's it. Just ride the djembe. Sometimes it's a little bit too prevalent. Now don't get me wrong, if it comes down to dB, it's still going to have that same relationship. It's still going to be thumping the whole time. But just ride it a little bit. That's it. Just the low end of the djembe. That's what you'd ride. Otherwise, fantastic work. I think Christina would be very, very happy with that. This is a really good song to kind of show off, you know, mixing organic instruments, you know, because it's essentially you know, she plays everything except where I play. She plays all the acoustics. She plays drums. She plays the djembe. She played some of the bass. I think I played bass and electric on that. But, you know, just really great work. Andy, hats off to you. Ride the djembe so it's not too dominant all the time. So it sits just enough to be driving, you know, to have that groove going. But just tuck it back just a little bit, because it says a lot and it's really dominant, and that's fine, but find the right balance of dominant. Otherwise, wonderful work. Great work, Andy. Wow. Next up is Emiliano, and Emiliano says, hello everyone, this is my mix of this great song. If anyone wants to listen to it and comment, please do.
Spineless curve, turn
Fantastic, Emiliano. Really great work. I've only had minor notes. I feel like there's a lot of natural drum sound in there, which is absolutely amazing. I love the Arumi approach. You know, that was one of my favorite drum rooms. That was my old drum room where I did How to Save a Life and Aerosmith's last record. Did tons and tons of really, some of my biggest stuff. James Blunt was done in that room. Loads of really, really good records were done in that room. And it had a Tax Scorpion originally, then an API console in it, and just had a blast. And I had a second room with a Neve in it where I used to track, do overdubs and do vocals and mix. So I have a lot of affinity for the drum sound there. I know that room really, really well. So the only thing I would say is like pulling out some low mids, like on the toms in particular when they play. It could be the tom mics, it could also be the overheads, it could be the room mics, everything picking it up. But it needs a little bit of that 350, 400 pulled out. So I think on the drums in general, you know, it just needs a little bit of 350, 400 pulled out, just so there's a little bit more bloom in the low end when the toms go around. Instead of thinking flop, flop, there should be like doo, doo. You know, just a little bit of that. Pull it out, so it needs to come out of the overheads as well as the tom mics themselves. Because what ends up happening is like the overheads, you know, are accurate, but they may well, you know, not pick up the low lows as much. And so there's a prevalent kind of sound. But what I would do is I would solo your overheads and hear them. And if they do sound pretty full, go and think about taking the rack and the floor tom and nudging it back using time adjuster or something so that the phase is more, the polarity I should say, or the phase, both, is more correct with the overheads. That will really help, because sometimes what's happening is overheads are pushed, which we may all do, especially these, because these overheads are very natural and the drummer Travis plays very, very, very well and very balanced. So what may happen is the overheads sound great pulled up. They give an accurate view of the kit, but with the toms ever so slightly, you know, delayed inside of the overheads, there gets to be some low-end phase cancellation. Because as we're talking about, there's a big waveforms coming off. So if you've got 80 hertz coming off a floor tom, for instance, this big fat waveform, if the overheads are nicely turned up and sound beautiful, but they're late, it cancels out. And so you lose the low lows and you get this sort of muddy low mid sound. It's why we talk about high passing sometimes can be an absolutely amazing, because if you high pass the low lows out of the overheads, and pull out a little bit of low mids, those toms will come to life. But so I'd say a combination of pull low mids out of the toms and then look at your overheads and make sure that when you pull the toms and the overheads together, that there's no low end cancellation in there. Otherwise, pretty darn fantastic. A really, really amazing, amazing mix. Okay, so do we have it up? The latest one? I'm clicking on it. And Academy, Gallery, White Nose Town, Mix, Breakdown and Multitracks. Yeah, I don't see any comments. Feel free to comment underneath the mix breakdowns and stuff like that, you know, because I talk about the tracks. And if you have any questions on there, I will endeavour to go back and scour through them and make sure. AJ says he hasn't done a mix in a while and he's feeling guilty. So great work, Emiliano. That's it. Drum sound. That's it. And the drums sound fantastic. I'm talking about improving them from really good to absolutely amazing. All right, last but no means least, and then we're going to go back and revisit Mary's track. Do you have it?
I do have it.
He does. So we're going to listen to one, and then we're going to go back and listen to the latest Mary's track. Okay, so Demetrius Georgopoulos. Okay. Here we go. Great work.
Sometimes the silence in my jet black room keeps me up.
I didn't read it. I said his name, but I didn't read it. So, Demetrius, first of all, he says, this is my first mix in the Academy. Be gentle. We will. We're always encouraging here because none of us are geniuses. All of us, myself included, do amazing mixes and then really bad mixes. Sometimes I have to spend 3 days on a song which seems simplistic, and sometimes I spend 3 hours on something that seems complicated. There are no rules. You know, there's no people saying that the sound of hits here. This is a bunch of guys and girls, and there's a as you probably know, we have a 20% ratio, 80-20 split on guys and girls in here, which is unheard of in the music industry. I believe it's 97 or 98, 2 or 3. It's really amazing. As you can see, there's at least three women on or girls on at the moment helping out of people talking here. It's really, really very, very positive here. So anyway, Dimitri, you're in Athens. Couldn't be happier. As everyone knows, I'm a huge fan of Greece. Our best family vacations, best family holidays are all spent in Greece. My aunt and uncle have a house in Rhodes, on the island of Rhodes, and we love it, and we love being there. So, congratulations on being Greek. As I always say, Greece is our past and our future. Here we go.
Sometimes the silence in my jet black room keeps me up at night. Sometimes a lie is all that can make everything alright. It won't make it alright. Sometimes I wonder if it's coincidence that love is a four-letter word. And sometimes well-spoken negativity is the loveliest thing I've heard. Well, I've heard. Sometimes the silence in my jet black room keeps me up at night. And sometimes a lie is all that can make everything alright. It won't make it alright. It won't make it alright. Sometimes I think it's a wonderful life, and oftentimes I don't. And sometimes I'll fall for anyone who seems to think that I won't. Sometimes I think I'll kill myself just to see if God is real. Sometimes I'm an emotional vampire who chooses not to feel, not to feel, chooses not to feel. Sometimes I'm everything I swore I'd never be. Jet black silence is all that's left of me. And sometimes I accept the fact as far as I can see. 100 lousy love songs. Sometimes I'm anything I swore I'd never be. The jet black silence is all that's left of me. Sometimes I accept the fact as far as I can see. 100 lousy
Dimitri, for a first mix, that is absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. And I think tonally, he says, having trapped my headphones around the chair here, great. I would say for a first mix, not only was it fantastic, the balances are all really, really good. You know, I hear a little bit of the kick and snare sample on the drums, but I actually don't mind. I think it makes it a little bit more modern. I had a lot of fun with this song. Chris is a great singer. We were really able to get phenomenal vocals out of him. There's one thing, and it's really great to hear this because I haven't heard it in a while, and I've heard him do some new songs which sound really good, but I realise one of the things that we pride ourselves on here and is really, really important and I think is worth talking about is vocal production, vocal recording, production, and these vocals are absolutely fantastic. And I know we worked very hard with him on getting great vocals, and it really shows. It really shows that we got great performances, and it's very expressive. And I think that that's one thing that we should always be talking about and thinking about. It's like how to present the vocals in the best way, because ultimately those are what sell the song. Most producers get carried away with like their fancy guitar parts or this, that and the other, you know, whatever stuff they get into, and they forget, and I've done this and I've been in this room so many times, they forget that 90% of the world is just listening to the vocal. And I would say you did a wonderful job of presenting the vocal here. Really, really good. The only thing I think I would want you to do, because I really love what you've done here, Demetrius, is maybe get a bit carried away and have some fun, because there's a lot of potential here to maybe get some drama, to maybe do like a lot of, you know, a lot of like delayed effects and reverse cymbals and all kinds of schnizzle, and maybe even some additional production if you're into doing that, whoever wants to do this. Stuff that's going to make this really super dramatic, you know, some riding stuff. I mean, Chris has got a very, very dramatic voice, so there's a lot of like emotion in there, and I would just be exaggerating that as much as possible. But for a first mix, unbelievable. Low end was pretty tight. I mean, a couple people mentioned maybe could have a little tiny bit more low lows on the kick. Probably, and that's, but so close. And to be honest, most of that could have probably be accomplished by a really, really good mastering engineer. Great work. All right, so yeah, let's think. I'm very intrigued now. If we go to the Marg, for instance, one of the best sounding. Oh, license has expired on our Marg, the Plug-in Alliance. That's interesting. How can we get? How did that expire? All right, we need to talk to them. Okay. All right. God bless it. That was really, really good. I'm going to step aside because Eric is going to load up. Aren't you, Eric?
Yes, I am.
Mary's. Do. Eric von Derrickson. Eric's here to save the day. I'm stepping aside, but he's racing in.
I am. I'm running.
He's racing. He's racing. He's really racing. I promise you, it's racing.
All right, guys. You are listening to camera audio because that way you don't listen to
Me typing emails,
because you guys
answering messages.
you guys get enough of Warren.
Yeah, you've had enough of me. He wants to listen to that guy.
Do real quick. Boom. Bada boom. Bada beam. No one look at my files. They are very confidential. Yes. Hashtag Team Eric. And we now have Mary's final bounce.
Yay! Go, Eric. Go, Eric. It's your birthday. Go, Eric. Go, Eric. Go, Eric.
Oh no, Dave, my jokes? I didn't prepare for this. Let me see.
Oh yeah, you gotta have the Eric joke. Eric joke of the day. What's your Eric joke of the day?
This will be a Star Trek joke.
Star Trek joke.
How many ears does Captain Kirk have?
How many ears does Captain Kirk have?
Mm-hmm.
How many ears?
How many ears?
I'm trying to think of. I don't know. What is it?
Well, he's got his left ear. He's got his right ear. He's got the final frontier. Yes! I've been waiting. I've been saving that for a while.
Oh, dearie me. Oh. Boo.
Oh no!
The final frontier. It's going to be a thing, the Eric joke. Final frontier. Ay, ay, ay. Ah. Oh, Sheila's got the hots for Eric. Busted. Is it that hair? Is it the hair? Final front ear. Ah. All right. Now we're going to listen to the right mix from Mary. And I'm going to bring it down a little bit because I can see it's pretty hot print. So even though it's not at, you know, it's not quite at 0 dB, still going to bring it down a bit here because it's printed pretty hot. Just give it a fighting chance. We don't want it to be distorted. So I'm bringing it down 2 dB. So you may or may not want to turn it up where you are. All right, final frontier.
Wake up in the morning, jump right out of bed. Rain is at our window, fall is here again. Darling, quit your yawning, sleep some other time. It's such a lovely morning to run around outside. I don't wanna wait for summer to come, 'cause I'm warming up with you in my arms. Some might say the cold is no fun, but I'm warming up. Yes, I'm warming up with you in my arms. Put on that old raincoat and jump right in the mud. Sometimes it gets boring doing what we should. I don't wanna wait for summer to come, 'cause I'm warming up with you in my arms. Some might say the cold is no fun, but I'm warming up. Yes, I'm warming up with you in my arms. Ooh, Now we might get things wrong. No one's perfect all the time. Key in your favorite song. Summer to come. I don't wanna wait for summer to come. I don't wanna wait for summer to come, 'cause I'm warming up with you in my arms. Some might say the cold is no fun, but I'm warming up. Yes, I'm warming up with you in my arms.
Fantastic. Well, firstly, the drum sounds infinitely better. You can feel that you put the low lows on there. I still think you could get a little bit more on that kick. Just a nat. Let's have a listen.
Wake up in the morning, jump right out of bed.
A little bit more point, a little bit more, you know, just on that would be really, really good. Maybe when you bring it up a little bit, it might also need a little bit more 350 cut, a bit more low mid cut. That's great. And as everybody's saying, lots of people saying, you know, when the guitars come in the chorus, it dwarfs everything else. Have a listen.
To run around outside. I don't wanna wait for summer to come.
So the guitars are going to, it just needs basically automation. I think the kick, a bit more low lows on the kick, like I was saying, little duck of 350, a bit more of the direct sound of it, a little less of the overhead sound by just pulling up the kick. But then when the electrics come in the choruses, just duck them down like a dB and a half to 2 dB on the left and right, and then bring the drums up. You know, be dynamic, make the drums hit harder because the chorus comes in. And I think from there, see where you're at. But those major things will make all the difference. But yeah, definitely a vast improvement over the other mix. Great, great work. Great to have you in here. Really wonderful to see that you're building your own company, your own brand. This is what we want to see. I know everybody here does a similar thing and helps each other out. So please, let's keep contributing and help each other. Great that we got to do that. And Eric found the latest mix. I'm glad we had Eric's joke of the day. Joke of the day. I said deer because I was thinking left ear, right ear, front ear. Final front ear. Oh my God. I can't believe I repeated that joke. Anyway, have a marvellous time recording and mixing. We'll see you next week. What we have decided to do, Eric.
Yes.
User-generated mixes next week. User-generated mixes. Why did I decide to do that? Well, I was seeing a couple of people saying that they haven't had time to work outside of their own band's mixes and their own stuff. So, next week, you can, just this 1 week only, because we always threaten to do this, put up one of your own mixes by a band you're working with, an artist you're working with. Not some, you know, random other. Do something of your own. Not like another Academy thing. I want to hear something that you've been working on. Something that's important to you that you need real help and a discussion with. So something you're working on, your business, something, your own band, your own productions, you know, anything. That's for next week, okay? Have a marvellous time recording and mixing. Thank you ever so much for being an incredibly supportive, if not the most supportive and best community out there. And if you can, will you step over now and go to Fact Friday and leave me a message over there, and I'm going to go back and answer all those messages. And we're going to get back to mixing Rick Springfield and having a marvellous time. Speak to you all again very, very soon.